and welcome to a Minecraft Recurrent Complex tutorial. In this video we will be looking at the commands that come with the Recurrent Complex. You eventually have to use some of them to get this mod to work the way you want, so they are essential. While other commands will just open up a GUI or help you do things faster. Everything I know about the commands I either learned by reading the wiki or by experimenting. My knowledge about Recurrent Complex commands is not complete, and I'm still learning new things every day. So, if you think I made a mistake or there's a better way to use the command, feel free to leave a comment below. I will go through the commands in the order I use them, from more important to less important. But please be aware this is my personal opinion and your usage might differ. I will also not cover all of Recurrent Complex's commands here, but just the ones you will need in the order to be productive with this mod. Before we start, a general comment on the syntax of commands. All of them start with a slash, like normal Minecraft commands, followed by hashtag, like so. Many commands allow for attributes which will modify the way the command works. Unfortunately, the way these attributes are structured is not very uniform. Most attributes are preceded by two hyphens and then the value for the attribute. In case of coordinates, it is sometimes only one hyphen, followed by the in-game coordinates. And in some cases, it is just the attribute without any hyphen. Minecraft's help command is very effective when you want to learn how the exact syntax is. And now, let's have a look at the commands, starting with export is one of the most, if not the most essential command. You will need it to export any structure that you have previously built. It is the basis for any reuse of structures. As such, it is very simple. Once you have decided upon the area you want to export, you simply type export. And a GUI opens which lets you define some elements of the structure like spawning frequency and how it shall spawn. We will look at the GUI more closely in a future video. For now, let's just set a name for your structure and choose whether to save it in the active or inactive folder. You can also provide some attributes to the export command. You can provide a name of an already existing structure after the command like, and that will open up the GUI as before, but will load all configurations that you have set on the existing structure. This feature comes in handy when you export a lot of structures with the same settings, probably when you have to build maze components, which we'll cover in another video. As I said, by providing the name of an already existing structure, you can copy its settings to a new structure, including name. So if you don't want to override the existing structure, you should supply a new name, either in the GUI or you provide it in the command line, like so. This will also open up the GUI, but with a name already provided with the ID attribute. Of course, you can mix this with the previous command to get the settings of another structure and save it with a current selection and a new name, like so. Very handy when creating maze components. There is one last attribute to this command, and that is directory, or also available as shorthand D. I think it is supposed to set the directory in which you want to save your structure, active or inactive. However, I didn't manage to get this attribute to work. I always get an error message that there is no such directory ID. Remember my video about block selector ones and that I said the only way to select the area you want to export is by using one of the ones? Well, that is not entirely true. You can also use the selection command. To do so, you type selection set. And then the absolute coordinates without any x, y or z in front of it, like so. This will set your starting point or right-click point to the coordinates of 1, 1, 1. You can also type in two sets of coordinates, that is 6 numbers in a row, only separated by a space. You then need to add first and second as additional parameters, and it may look like this. This will set your starting point selection and endpoint selection just as if you had right-clicked and Ctrl-right-click these coordinates with a block selector wand. If you provide only one set of coordinates and do not specify for which type of selection point this is, both starting and endpoint are set to these coordinates. If you provide two sets of coordinates but fail to provide first and second as attributes, only the first coordinate will be used for both points. This will set the starting point and the end point to 1, 1, 1. You can move your entire selection by providing relative coordinates, like so. This will move your selection, both starting and end point, by 1 in every direction. You can also mix relative and absolute coordinates. This will set the x and y coordinates of your start and end point to 1, but move the z coordinate of those points up by 1. As I have said, it will move both points at once. If you just want a specific selection endpoint to move, you have to add first or second. If you want to know where on the map your current selection is and how big in amount of blocks it is, you type selection get. Getting the exact coordinates of your starting and end point can help you with copy and paste or move commands. Another feature is to expand your existing selection by a given amount. You can type selection expand 1, for example, and it will increase the selection in all 6 directions by 1. You can also choose to just expand on a specific axis, say the x-axis. In this case, you type selection expand x1, and this will only increase the selection by 1 in the 2 directions along the x-axis. The counterpart for expand is shrink, so selection shrink 2 will shrink your selection by 2 in all directions. You can of course also supply an axis modifier, and it will shrink by the values given for all the supplied axes, like so. Selection shrink x2, y1, z4. If your selection is way larger than your actual structure, you can type selection crop, and the selection will shrink to fit your structure. The counterpart to this is selection wand. If your selection is smaller than your structure, you can type selection wand and it will increase to fit your structure. Be careful though, because if your structure is connected in any way or form to the floor, the selection will expand to the horizon. The last useful feature is selection clear, which will remove any selection in your current game. There is one more feature with the selection command, and that is selection help. However, it appears to be doing the same thing as help selection, so not really relevant. All in all, the selection command is pretty versatile and powerful. The fill command does exactly what you think it does. It fills the selected area with a block of your choice. In order to do so, you type the command followed by the block you want, like so. Fill dirt. If it is a non-vanilla block, you have to use the mod name and a colon. Fill recomplex generic solid. In case the different blocks are only distinguished by metadata, you need to add the attribute metadata, or its shorthand M. Fill wool metadata 2 or fill wool M2. This command is very useful for bulk filling empty space, but can also be used to clean up your building area with fill air. The fill command does have an argument which is flood, fill flood. That argument is supposed to flood the area around any existing structure with a block of your choice. It sounds pretty useful, however, I have yet to see it in action. I always get an error message when trying to use that argument. Either I'm missing an argument, or the area appears to be too big to be flooded. If you know how it works, leave a comment. Fill is a pretty powerful command that can help you speed up your builds, not only for Recurrent Complex. However, remember, it will fill the entire selection with a selected block. If you wanted to keep something in your selection, well, too bad. The natural command can be used to fill empty spaces in your structure with either negative space or solid natural floor blocks. Unlike the fill command, the natural command will not remove any existing blocks. The command itself comes in 3 flavors: natural space, natural floor, and natural smart. The natural space command will look top down from your selection and see if there are some areas that can be filled with negative space blocks. Natural floor will try to attach solid natural floor blocks to your structure where the algorithm thinks it makes sense. And finally, the natural smart command will do both steps at once. That algorithm may work in your advantage, but there is no guarantee it will. So it is best to make a copy of your structure before you try the natural command. Which also brings me to my next commands. Copy and paste. You can copy a selection and paste it. Copy is pretty straightforward. it will commit the current selection to memory. The paste will happen where you are currently standing, your X, Y, and Z coordinates as a player. Wherever you are is the northwest corner of the paste, and from there it will go to southeast corner. After typing paste, a ghost shape will appear where the structure will be copied. If you're happy with the location, you need to type confirm. If not, you need to type cancel. If you confirmed, you will get an exact copy of your selection. However, this will not affect your selection. The selection will not disappear. The paste command has several attributes that you can use to modify the copy to your advantage. If you add select or simply S, it will paste in the structure but also change the selection to the new one. If you add rotate or simply R, followed by a number, it will rotate the pasted structure by 90 degrees. Positive numbers is clockwise, negative numbers is counterclockwise. If you know exactly where you want to move your structure, you can also provide coordinates. There's only one hyphen instead of two, and you need to label the coordinates, so it is X, Y, and Z, each followed by a number. The structure will be pasted to those coordinates instead of where you are standing. In case you don't provide all coordinates, the remaining coordinates will be filled by the coordinates of your location. The coordinates can either be absolute or relative to the current position of the selection. If you want them to be relative, you can use the tilde symbol before the number. Another attribute that you can use is generate, or simply G. This is only useful, however, if you want to paste this in your world using the spawning conditions the structure has been given. So if you have created an ocean monument and you're currently in the desert, nothing will happen. In general, I think you won't be using this attribute with the paste command, because if you're like me, you have your dedicated building world, which is a super flat world with a glass floor, or maybe no block at all. And if you want to test your structure for spawning rules, you will change to a proper world and will use a different command, but we will get to that. Paste has two more attributes, which are mirror and seed. Mirror does exactly what you think it does. And then there is the last command, paste seed. However, it seems to do nothing, at least in the 1.12 version. If anyone knows what this is for, let me know in the comments. You can mix attributes to paste your structure to a specific coordinate while rotating it and keeping your selection, like so. The next command on our list is the move command. This command will move your selection and everything in it by the amount you specified in the coordinates. The previous area will be filled with air. In this respect, all moving is relative to the original position. Coordinates work just like with the paste command with X, Y, and Z attributes, each followed by a number. As usual, you have to confirm or cancel your move action. Be careful though, regardless of whether you confirm or cancel the move, the selection will be moved anyway. Another attribute is duplicate, or C, which will basically work like copy and paste. You can also use rotate or simply R followed by a number. Just as with paste, positive numbers rotate clockwise, negative numbers counterclockwise. Then there's the attribute mirror or simply M, which basically does what you expect it to be. You can also supply your command with the noSelect or S attribute, in which case the selection will not be moved but only its contents. The last attribute again eludes me, and that is times or simply T. I think it's supposed to copy the content a number of times, but I failed to get it to work. All things considered, I think move is the better copy and paste, but that's just my personal opinion. Next up, import and gen. The import function lets you import existing structures into your world, so you can continue working on them or just look at them. This is a command you will only use when building and modifying existing structures. It will ignore any spawning rules and place the structure with your current location as the northwest corner. The gen command, on the other hand, does the same as import but respects the spawning rules of a structure. So a pyramid, which is only supposed to spawn in the desert, will not appear when you're in the ocean using that command. Both commands also have similar attributes which work the same way for both. Mirror, or simply M, will work exactly as you expect it to be. So does rotation, or R. The syntax is R1, R2, R3, and so on. Remember that each number will rotate the structure by 90 degrees. Positive numbers clockwise, negative numbers counterclockwise. When you add the attribute select, or simply T, the structure will be spawned in and also selected at the same time, as if you had used the want or selection command. You can also use coordinates to specify where a structure shall spawn. Coordinates can be absolute or can be relative to your position if you use the tilde symbol. You can also mix absolute and relative coordinates in one statement. There is one distinction though between import and gen when using coordinates. While import takes coordinates for all x, y, and z axes, gen will only take coordinates for x and z axes. It will use its spawning rule to determine the y coordinates. You can also use the attribute dimension, or simply d, to select the dimension in which the structure shall spawn. An important thing to remember as difference between import and gen is that import will work with both active and inactive structures. The gen command, however, can only pull from active structures. The following attributes are exclusive to the gen command. If you want to spawn in mazes or randomized structures, you can provide a seed with seed. This way you can make sure your random maze will always look the same when you spawn it in. Might be helpful for testing mazes and maze components, for instance. If you had to suggest, it will show you how Recurrent Complex plans to spawn the structure in the world. However, Recurrent Complex does this by default anyway, so I'm not sure what this attribute actually does. You can also add gen to the gen command. Likewise, I have no idea what this does. I've tried to get a different behavior from Recurrent Complex by using this attribute and leaving it out, but apparently it does nothing noticeably. Similar to export is the edit command. You have to supply the edit command followed by a name of an already existing structure, and that will open up the same window as the export function. This allows you to modify spawning rules for the existing structure without having to import and export it again. We will take a separate look at this window in a different video. Edit also comes with the attributes from, ID, and directory. While I still think the directory attribute is useless, as this export existing structure directory active still gives me error messages, the other two attributes are more useful. Edit existing structure from other structure. The from command allows you to edit existing structures while copying the configuration values from another structure. Neat. While ID allows you to edit an existing structure but already modifying it with a new name. And if you combine from and ID, you can create lots of the same looking structures that have different configurations and save them under new names. This may come in handy when you are creating or modifying maze components. The next command we will be looking at is reload. If you have modified or edited one or more structures in your running game and want these modified structures to spawn in, you need to type the reload command. This will load all new or modified structures to the game's memory. The reason is simply because all structures are usually loaded when you start Minecraft. Any structures that you add manually to the folder or modify otherwise afterwards will not appear in your procedurally generated world. You may call them using the import command, but they will not appear in world generation. In order to do so, you have to restart Minecraft first, or better yet, use the reload command. In case you added Recurrent Complex to an existing game and want structures to spawn in your already explored map, you can use the retro command. This command will look for chunks which have not used Recurrent Complex and apply its spawning rules. So this may or may not spawn in additional structures to already existing chunks, and may even override anything that was there before. Depending on your world size, it takes quite a while to check all your chunks and may even freeze or crash your current game. So be careful what you wish for. The retro command comes with two attributes which you can supply, dimension and XP. The first one seems pretty obvious. You can restrict the retro generation of chunks to specific dimensions. If you only want the Nether to retro generate recurrent complex structures, you would enter retro dimension -1. As for XP, I have to admit I don't fully know how it works. It is used to further restrict retro generation to specific biomes or dimensions. It uses include parameters that you can find on the Recurrent Complex wiki. However, it will only take very simple expressions and not complex ones. For instance, the command will complain if you use this one, which is one of the expressions you will find in the wiki. It means that retro shall work on all biomes but water and forest biomes. However, it will not work. On the other hand, you can supply this and that will work. In this way, you restrict retro generation of structures to forest biomes only. I'm not quite sure which expression can be used and which cannot. I'm afraid you will have to experiment. The whatisthis command can be very useful. Say you are roaming your game world and come across a structure that you don't know. You can type this command, and if the structure was in fact placed by Recurrent Complex, it will tell you the name of the structure as you will find it in the structures folder. If it has not been placed by Recurrent Complex, it will simply tell you that there's nothing here. In order for the command to work, you need to be standing within the structure's bounds that are defined by the selection during the export. If you know the exact coordinates of the structure, you can also provide the coordinates as attributes to the command. For example, this will look for a structure at 565 - 500. This is it for this video. There are many more commands which I may feature in another video, but the ones explained in this video will be the ones most useful to you. Remember, I don't care if you like or subscribe my channel. I don't make a living out of YouTube. I just wanted to make a tutorial for a great Minecraft mod. But if you really liked my video, you can send me one of your builds, which I can use for my game world or even showcase in my upcoming videos. Until next time!